I am Dynasty Outhouse, and I have a trading problem.
I am Rocky Petrella, and I also have a trading problem.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to session 234 of the Trade Addicts podcast, a member of the DLF family of podcasts, also a proud member of the Dynasty Addicts podcast network, the DAP network, if you will. And we will. Oh, at least I'm here this week. That's all I can really like.
That is good news.
That is
It
good
would be
news.
tough if it was just me.
Yeah, that would be really weird this week, especially because this show was going to be live no matter what happened, and if it was just Rocky, it would be Rocky by himself.
I'd still make it 90 minutes somehow, Russ.
You got that. I'm like typing stuff onto the show sheet, and Rocky's like, it's okay to have an hour show, and I'm like, is it? I don't think it is. But yeah, and like, I mean, stuff is happening, but like, I think we're finally at the point of the season where just like, do we really just want to talk about more people getting hurt? Like,
yeah.
Can I just be sad that Marquise Brown hurt his foot and not have to talk about it and cry about it live on YouTube?
I know. It was so much Hollywood. But remember in
Hollywood, I'm glad I gave you that one at least.
Remember in the preseason when we're all like, oh, it's so nice. We got through with like no major injuries, nobody getting hurt. And now it's just injury after injury.
It's like they took it easy on us, I guess is the only thing I can say. They were just like, oh, this cute. They think they're gonna have it easy.
Nope.
Okay, but what week is it? We just finished
week 6, yes.
Why did they start buys so late? And my real question, like, we have an extra week of the season, so they started them a week later. No, screw that noise. Keep them the same week and spread them out more. Like,
yes.
Doesn't the NFL realize where most of its money comes from, and that is fantasy football and gambling? So they shouldn't put so many teams with good fantasy players on buy at the same time. Like,
and don't they have week 14 buys this year? I think, or something.
Yeah. Like, care about my fantasy team.
Exactly.
Football. That's all I'm saying.
And Scott Fishbowl, it's going to be killer. I think the playoffs start week 13, week 12. So I mean, multiple bye weeks in the playoffs.
I remember because before SFB, like the draft, everyone's like, "What's your strategy? What's your strategy?" My strategy was literally don't draft people with week 13 or 14 buys.
Yeah,
that was literally because I made it to the playoffs last year, and then literally had 4 of my starters on bye the first week. I'm like, oh, well, that was fun.
I have to worry about making the playoffs before I.
I was about to say I'm probably not going to have to worry about that whatsoever.
I've not made it since the first one, which was 3 years ago. So
it's really funny. I meant to text you before because if you go and look at Dynasty FF Addicts Twitter bio, SFB 9 finalist, SFB 10, SB 11, SFB 12. I'm like, I think you could stop listing SFBs now. I think you're just going to make them in. All right, but let's go to the news because there is some news, and yes, we'll start with Hollywood Brown has a foot injury. The last thing I saw is that 6 to 8 weeks. Like at first they're like season ending, and I'm just like, oh god, no. And then 6 to 8 weeks. I am still sad, but that is much better news. And we have E-Money in the chat, which is probably Eric. So is it your fault that Hollywood got hurt? I will take the blame.
I'll blame Russ too.
Will. Yeah, I mean Rocky is part of that also. Like the royal Yor. Yes, it is.
We loved a lot of the same guys this offseason, and Hollywood was definitely one of them.
Definitely one of them.
If in like every Trade Addicts league, it seems like either you or I have him in one of them.
Right. So I guess. I mean, we kind of have to talk about this now, right? Because this, as always, long-term, 6 weeks doesn't affect a player's dynasty value, especially a 25-year-old wide receiver. But it's going to do something, especially with, it's Evan, my bad. E-Money, how am I supposed to guess that? We have DeAndre Hopkins coming back. We have the reassertions of Rondale Moore finally being healthy and getting a bunch of targets. I freaking loved that. And I almost said Bobby Anderson. That's really weird.
Bobby
Anderson over to the Cardinals now. What? Okay, well, step back. Does this worry you, Rocky, about Marquise Brown going forward at all? Like, are you concerned with all of these things? Well, I'm assuming you did not care about Hopkins coming back in general because you were that high on Marquise coming in. But does Rondale being included in the offense and Robbie Anderson coming to the team at least give you a little bit of concern?
Not really. I assume the Robbie Anderson thing was because they knew Hollywood. Maybe they thought too, like the reports were coming out that Hollywood was going to be a season-ending thing, and even if not, they knew they weren't going to have him for a while. So, and I don't know. I don't remember what the price was, but I assume it was really cheap to get Robbie Anderson. So
I honestly didn't even bother
yeah,
looking. 'Cause I'm like, oh,
I
cool,
don't.
six.
Yeah,
All right, fun.
yeah. So I mean, it's an easy, kind of depth piece for them with him being hurt. So I'm not worried about him either. And like you said, Hopkins, I've been off of all since last year. I've said it over and over again that his fantasy value was mostly living off of touchdowns in 2021, and maybe that'll work this year. But they're not scoring as many touchdowns as they were last year either. The Cardinals have not looked great offensively, even with Hollywood. So I it doesn't really worry me. It worries me for Hollywood this year just because 6 to 8 weeks. I mean, maybe you get him back for the playoffs, but who knows what he is after missing 8 weeks and having a foot injury and re-injury and compensation injuries and all that. So I'm kind of almost in my head possibly writing him off for the fantasy season just because it is the longer end of that 8 weeks. We're talking about week 14. So his first game back could be either the first game of the playoffs or the game before the playoffs, and that's a little scary. And like I said, Kyler has not been looking great this year. So I don't worry too much long term, and I expect Kyler to turn it around, but I do worry about Hollywood for 2022. I would say it's maybe, I guess, a little uptick for Hopkins because of target volume. He was not getting as much target volume last year, and I don't expect Robbie Anderson or Rondale is going to hurt Hopkins that much. So I could see him being a little better than I was thinking in the offseason just because Hollywood is now gone.
Oh, by the way, we got Robbie Anderson for a 24 6th and a 25 7th.
That's what they.
Good job getting that 25 7th. I thought it was just going to be a 6th. Victory. That is a win.
Wow.
Okay, so here's my thing. I think I've always been a little higher on Robbie Anderson than most of the fantasy football world, because there was just any time where Robbie Anderson and Sam Darnold were healthy at the same time, and Robbie Anderson was not saying mean things to a police officer about his wife, they did really, really, really well together. And it's not like deep threat well. It was like 9 for 115 and 1. Like, it was X receiver well. And of course, Jets, Sam Darnold, and then Panthers, and the just barrage of quarterbacking that's been going on. And technically, this has to be the best quarterback he's played with. Coming in, going over to Kyler. Even if Kyler's not playing great, Kyler does still have a great deep ball. So I think I'm happy with the amount of Robbie Anderson shares I have. Like, I have a bunch just because, like I said, I've always been a little higher, so I've been willing to send thirds when no one even wanted him.
Mm-hmm.
So I will probably be happy about that because I agree with what you said. Nuke is going to come in and be the guy. And I think Robbie Anderson can at least fit into that deep role. And if that's the case, with a team that throws the ball as much as they do, even if they don't look good, I feel like you have enough chance. If you're putting Robbie Anderson in that bottom, your last flex spot, I feel like that's good upside. And again, like you said, Rondale Moore to me is good for everyone else because he's going to keep the at least linebackers and maybe one cornerback at least lower down to the line of scrimmage, because you can't give that guy too much space once he catches the ball because he is very, very good in space. So like you said before, I'm also a little higher now on Hopkins than I even was before because he's going to be the guy.
And I do kind of like Rondale too. I mean, he's actually, like you said, gotten some decent amount of targets in these first couple of games back. I think he had like a 7 for 60 game his first game back or something like that, which isn't amazing, but more than I was expecting out of him. I mean, if he can be a solid PPR wide receiver 3 type, that's better than I was hoping for. I only have a couple Rondale shares, but I was not expecting much out of them at all between Hopkins and Hollywood and Ertz. And so, and if you had told me they had traded for a wide receiver on top of that, I definitely wouldn't have felt good. But yeah, so I kind of, I still like Robbie. I think he could have like the occasional boom week that you never know when it's going to happen. Like I think earlier this year for the Panthers, he had a 75-yard touchdown or something. But
Yeah, the very first game where he had like 25 targets for some reason.
Yeah. So, but other than that, I
like,
can't imagine being comfortable starting him.
Also, like the most important Cardinals news there is, Cliff Kingsbury is open to the idea. There's a lot of air quotes coming in all of this news. Is open to the idea of giving up play calling. Like, I get it. They hired Cliff because he was this brilliant offensive mind. I think everyone has realized that's not a thing.
Yes.
And maybe now it seems that Cliff is realizing that is not a thing.
He should be very open.
Yes. So hopefully that can only mean good things. Like, imagine like he gets fired and then they bring in someone else and then Josh Rosen comes back and Josh Rosen's like a top 10 quarterback. How clearly that's not happening, but how just chef's
Is he even in the league now?
No.
I know he bounced around in like backup third string roles.
Preseason he was on the Falcons, I think.
I think he may be on no roster now. I'm not positive.
Because he's waiting. He's waiting for Cliff to get the
waiting for
axe.
Cliff. Yeah.
It's happening. The next thing I have written down is that Keenan Allen should finally practice in full this week. There's nothing really to talk about with this. I just wanted happy Keenan news, and I'm here for it.
Me too. I have a ton of Keenan, including Keenan. Even my one redraft. Like my one redraft home league, I have Keenan. I've been waiting for him to come back. I'm like 3-3. I'm hoping he helps. Him and Godwin. I had both of them, and so I've been missing them for a lot of the season. So I'm hoping here I make my push in that my big money redraft league. But yeah, and the one game he played, he had like 10 PPR points in like a quarter and a half. So. And it looks like they could use them if judging off of some of their games recently. So,
yeah, I'm ready for it. I don't want Josh Palmer to go away, but like he's there, he's getting targets because Keenan's gone. So if that's what it means, sorry, Josh Palmer.
Oh yeah.
Rest of the year, we'll see what happens next year with Keenan, but go away. This one's actually, you know what? Let's go to this other one that makes me happier first. Tua should, again on the air quotes, should start next week. Like, I'm ready for it, assuming he's well. If he is well and ready to start, that's fantastic news because, man, there was a time where we were worried that guy could walk again. Like, that was bad. Yes. But with Tua coming back, that means we won't have to, like, suffer. I mean, Waddle and Hill did well this past week.
Yeah. Even was Skylar Thompson and then Teddy Bridgewater came in?
Yeah, the first against the Jets, it was Bridgewater for a play, and then Skylar Thompson,
and then it was Skylar Thompson.
This week it was Skylar Thompson for like a drive, and then it was Teddy Bridgewater the rest of the So who the hell knows? But I think everything will just be better with Tua there. So I am ready for it because I have a whole lot of Tua shares. I'm ready for it because I have a whole lot of Waddle shares, and I'm ready for it because it just means good football, and good football is good for everything. So. If you have anyone in your league that doesn't realize this is happening, just go try and get Tua one last time because Tua is good.
Yes, and he was looking good before the concussion. That we won't admit the first one. Yeah.
Would you give it 23 first for Tua?
I would give a playoff 23 first for Tua. Yes.
I think I'd give a mid. If it's a chance to be those top two quarterbacks coming in, probably not. So if we're talking like a top three, if it looks really, really bad, then I want to hold on to that first. But if it's a 3-3 team right now, that's middle of the pack in points and everything, it looks like they are just legit middle of the pack. I would send that first to go get Tua.
Yeah, I have a lot of Tua already though, so there's a lot of leagues where I can't do that.
Well, I'm trying to give everyone else. It's not just about us. It's like 98% about us. 97 me, 1 you, 2 everyone else.
There you go.
I missed you. I don't know what to say. Like I had to say something. This one is fun, regardless of how fake it probably is. This kind of stuff always just makes me happy. The 49ers and Rams, and I love that it's 2 teams in the same division. Here we go, implicated, heavy air quotes, in trade rumors for Christian McCaffrey.
What the hell does that mean? They're implicated.
I have no freaking idea. That's why I loved it even more. That really just means other people are talking about it, talking about the Niners and Rams. That has absolutely nothing to do with maybe even happening. They're like, I think you're doing it, so I'm calling you out on it.
There you go.
They have not been indicted. Let's just put it that way. This would be great either way for Christian McCaffrey and my 1-2 Christian McCaffrey shares. Just putting it out there. He's been doing well lately anyway, so I don't necessarily think I care. But for real life, clearly you want him to be on a good team just in case he like sneezes too hard. They don't shelve him like they have the past 2 years.
Yeah, and more touchdown. Even with what he's been doing, he hasn't been really scoring touchdowns. He's just been catching a lot more passes. So either one of those teams, I think there's more touchdown ups. I'd probably prefer the Niners actually, because the Rams' offensive line does not look good. The Rams' offense in general has not looked that good.
Except for Allen Robinson this week.
Yes. I mean, CMC you would think it would help that, but if he doesn't have the holes, it's going to be a lot harder. But maybe he gets a lot of dump offs because they don't have a or schemed plays, passes to him because they don't have the offensive line play they really need right now, and those short passes would work. So I'm fine with either. I'd actually prefer the 49ers. Yeah, there's more weapons there, but I think it would be a better offense. Him and Debo and Kittle and Jimmy's not a great downfield guy anyway. So it all works for me if you would end up with the 49ers.
I love it. One of my best friends is a 49ers fan, so I love pretending that Jimmy GQ is good because it just makes him so angry. And so I was at his house watching the game on Sunday, and there was like twice where Jimmy actually threw a nice deep ball that like hit Ayuk's fingertips or just barely got dropped. I'm like, look at that. That is not his fault. That was beautiful, Jimmy G. And if CMC goes to the Niners, that's a playoff team. Like, I don't like. It's hard to argue that offense is going to take them to the playoffs.
Yeah, although I don't know what the hell happened to them this week. How do you lose by 2 touchdowns to the Falcons?
It was so funny to watch my friend like fade into the abyss of despair. It was.
Although that happened to like a lot of teams, like the Bucks losing to the Steelers. There were a lot of weird games like that.
The Jets just crushing the Packers.
Packers after they lost, like they're done. After they lost to the Giants too, like the Packers. Yeah. What the hell? And Rodgers has not been good, by the way.
Rodgers wants to go to New York. He doesn't care which one, so he let them both win.
I guess so.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think I want the Niners over the Rams. I don't necessarily have a reason short of you're right. The offense is better. And Kyle Shanahan's offense has stood the test of time much better than McVay's.
Yes, and it's always been good for running backs anyway.
Right, like Jeff Wilson gives us 18 PPR points a week.
Except against the Falcons, apparently. Yeah.
He fumbles and gets doghoused.
What about I was just gonna say, since we're talking about the Rams, what do you think of the Akers rumors? Do you care? Does Akers matter anymore?
Look, I mean, I never actually saw what the real rumor was. I dug to try and find out what the original thing was, but all I found were people reactions, and no one ever. Were they talking about trading him or dropping him?
Trading. There's rumors. I think that he wants to trade. Is what I think it is. I'm not positive 100% either, but that I definitely heard trade rumors over the weekend that he's that, and that's like the main reason he was not, his personal reasons for not playing were that they're looking to trade him, even though McVay says he's not. It's not a done deal, and that he's not going to play for them again. But that's what it looks like. So I don't. To me, I don't really care. That's why I was wondering if you cared, because I just think apparently even though he's faded off, apparently Cam Akers is no James Robinson, and can't come back from the Achilles.
James Robinson isn't even James Robinson.
Yes, anymore. That's what I'm saying. The last few games, it's not looked as good as it had the first few games, but I just think he's going to be kind of mediocre wherever he goes. I mean, maybe if he went to some elite offense, but I don't know. I'm trying to think of an elite offense that would trade for him, and I can't think of one really. So
CMC goes to the Rams, and the Rams trade Akers to the 49ers.
There you go. Maybe there he could succeed.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, especially because that's a place where everyone can succeed. Man, like, what would you were never an Akers guy. You were off. Like, what are you getting? Like, would you give a second for Akers no matter what happens at this point?
No.
I
mean, I know some people would. It's not worth it to me. I'd rather get something better. Like I'd rather get an old guy that's going to score me more points this season for that second or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, all right. So real quick, when I threw my question out on Twitter, I always at the end of my tweet, I always put something like silly, just a silly question. So I asked what everyone's favorite childhood toy was. And we have a YouTube user that said, love playing with my Hot Wheels, vroom, vroom. And it just made me laugh that he said vroom, vroom. So I wanted to put that out there. All right. Let's move on from the news. We don't have a guest to ask if we should do listener questions or trades first.
So why don't you ask, should I answer?
Okay. So Justin, our B team, Justin, pops in and says, I'm watching TV, so this is muted, but I just wanted to say I love you guys. First of all, we love you too. Yes, you don't mute the TV for 4 seconds when you jump in to say hi. We could be saying such mean things about you right now. You would have no idea.
We probably should have. That's Justin. He's such an ass.
Oh, Corey came in and said listener questions. Let's do listener questions.
Oh, there you go.
At OMG, it's J Brew. I have a team with Lamar Carr. That's Lamar Carr. Sorry. Lamar Jackson, Derek Carr, Marcus Mariota, and 323 first. Nice humble brag. I like Carr as a solid number 2 QB, and I know Mariota isn't for long. Would you try to trade 2 of the later firsts to get a solid QB, or maybe 1 first with Carr to upgrade? And his favorite childhood toys, Sega Genesis or outdoor stuff? Yes. Sega Genesis. Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo, to me, was like the best generation of video games. Like, you had those 2 systems side by side, and the thing is, while there were plenty of games that went back and forth, everything was better on one system. Like, sports games were better on Genesis. Most action/RPG games were better on Super Nintendo. Like, things had their place. Nowadays, everything is everywhere, and they're the exact same thing.
Yeah, true.
So, like, that was...
I loved my Sega Genesis.
Loved Sega Genesis.
I'm old enough. I'm old enough. I played Atari, so...
Mine's in the closet. It doesn't work anymore.
The Atari 2600.
Yep, I still got it. So let's get to his actual question. Trade 2 firsts to get a quarterback. Trade 1 first and Carr to upgrade. Do you have to do anything at this point? I mean, I wish he gave us what the actual league details were.
Mm-hmm.
No. Okay, hold on. Evan is here saying Nintendo 64 says hold my beer. I never said the SNES and Genesis were better than N64. N64 literally changed video gaming. That's not in question. I'm just saying the generation of those 2 systems beat the generation of the next systems because there was nothing N64 and Dreamcast. Sorry, no. The total of that does not live up to the total of SNES and Sega Genesis. And let's add TurboGrafx 16. I loved that system and the 4 games that ever existed for it. It was Bonk's Adventure.
I never even heard of that.
You never? Oh, it was so bad, but great. It was 16-bit. It was the next generation.
I was gonna say, is that like Betamax or something? Like
pretty much the equivalent, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so like honestly, I'm cool for this season rolling with Lamar and Derek Carr. I would rather just ride with those 2 and keep my firsts more than anything else. Like, if you think you have a good team and you are N64 and PlayStation are not the same generation, sorry. Maybe, yeah, fine. Like, I would be absolutely good to add a first to Carr and just rolling with 2 quarterbacks on the case that Mariota gets sat eventually. But if they're beating the 49ers by 2 touchdowns, maybe they're not.
Yeah, they're 3-3.
Who knows, right? I would ride it. I would ride it out for as long as you possibly can. Hi, Ellie, you scared me. Say hi to everybody. We're live right now. Not that guy. Cool. All right.
That seems like my kids too.
Yeah.
Just a little smack in the face.
Like, so what do you think? Like, if you're rolling out Lamar Jackson and Derek Carr and you have Mariota as your 3rd QB, which I honestly don't even have a 3rd QB on most of my competing teams. Like, I'm cool with that, but I don't want to give up those firsts, even if it's one of the later ones, because like, if you're a playoff team, imagine being a playoff team this year and then the 23 draft comes and you have 3 firsts.
Yeah, You know what's funny is when I looked at this, I actually thought I might do Carr in the first, but it would depend on the quarterback you're getting and depend where the first is. Uh, but I'm looking at it. I'm not sure who I would want to give up like Carr in a first for that I would actually get. Like I was looking at the ADP, and am I give? I mean, maybe I give up Carr in a first for Trevor Lawrence, maybe, but I don't know that he's that huge of an upgrade. He's obviously a better upgrade long term. But in terms of points this year, and just like I said, looking at the DLF ADP, guys below him are like Justin Fields. I'm not giving up Carr in a first for that. Tom Brady, I'm not giving up Carr in a first for that. Stafford, Cousins. Tua, I don't think you should have to give up Carr in a first. So,
I know it's one quarterback, but we're just talking one position, so it doesn't really matter. But like above Derek Carr, you have Matt Stafford, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Tua, Dak, Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence, and then you hit Joe Burrow. Like then you hit like the top tier.
Yeah,
a Carr in a late first, you're not getting. I mean, you'll get Dak, but I don't think I want to do that.
That's what I'm saying. Like the guys you can get for Carr in a first, I'm not sure are worth giving up the first for.
If you have the chutzpah, the gumption to go and send Carr in an early first to try and go and see if you can pull Jalen Hurts or like honestly, I don't even think I do it for Joe Burrow, just especially because of the age, if anything else, even if the points are similar, like that's a move. It honestly might not be best for points Burrow might not be points, but I honestly
even this year right now, Burrow has way more points than Carr does.
No, yeah, I know.
Burrow is QB5 right now.
Are you looking at full points or points per game? Because Carr had bye this week.
That's true. Points per game. It is Burrow. Burrow is still 5th in points per game. Carr is 11th.
Not terrible. But yeah, man, like if you can Carr in an early first for Hurts.
I would do that all day. Yeah.
Go get Hurts.
Especially if I have two others.
Hurts is going to give you so many points this season. And can we get past the...
Yeah, he's going to give you so many points for so many seasons. He's looked... He started off hotter than he is right now in terms of real life play. Yeah. But he's still looking very good. He's winning. He's playing winning football. He does in terms of real life football. I'm talking about. He's not turning the ball over, which he never really has much to begin with. But even this year, it's even better. And he doesn't have huge numbers because they haven't thrown a lot of touchdowns yet. But a lot of that's because of him, or because they're getting down to like the 2-yard line. Miles Sanders or Kenneth Gainwell's running it in. So he's running the offense well. There is no doubt in my mind that Jalen Hurts is the quarterback next year in Philadelphia, and probably for many years, because they're at the point where they can extend them after this year, and I think that's going to happen.
Yeah, this was Hurts has 2 games below 20 points, 19 and 18.45.
Yeah.
And at least between Carr, who is at 19.7 points per game, I mean, you have Burrow at 5, who's at 24 points per game. So it's 4.7. And then Hurts is 2.3 on top of that. Like that, 2-3 points isn't the biggest deal. But when you hit like that 5-6, that starts to get a bit bigger. I mean, go big or go home. Go get, all of those first to go get Josh Allen to get your 33 points per game. Sure, right? Like, cool. But I think if you're moving Carr, you need to go for that top 5 player, that top 6 player.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's super not worth it. And if you're talking about moving Mariota, I mean, Mariota right now, 18 points per game. Unless you're going, go get Geno Smith with his 21 points. Unless, again, like there's no one, unless you're getting to those top 5 or 6 that are really difference makers at this point, because everyone else is within like 3-4 points per game, and that's not the biggest deal.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. And my initial reaction was to add the first for Carr and get somebody, even though I'm not a big paying up for quarterback guy, just because you have 2 other ones, but 2 other firsts, not quarterbacks. But yeah, the guys you can get by adding a first to Carr, I don't think are worth adding a first to Carr. Yeah. So,
but also the very important thing, Carr has his bye week out of the way now.
That's true.
You have him the rest of the way. So that's another reason to stay with him. I don't know. Like I wouldn't make a move. I would ride it out and hold those 3 firsts for as long as humanly possible, with hopes that you win the league and you still have 3 firsts. All right. Next question at Dynasty Beach Boy. Are you selling Lamar Jackson in Superflex or holding him? If you were to sell him, what are you looking for in return? And his favorite childhood toy was Darkwing Duck action figure. That show was so freaking good. So good. Well, I mean, it was based on Batman. It was a duck version of Batman, so of course it was good. Are you upset that I like Darkwing Duck? Why are you hitting me like that? All right, so I mean, let's look at Lamar Jackson right now, who is QB2 points per game, 27.5. I mean, he had 2 really, really, really good games in week 2 and 3, and then has been rather mediocre ever since.
Which kind of coincides with the loss of Rashad Bateman, by the way.
Even though he's not great.
Yeah, but I think it helps the offense having him out there, though.
Yeah. So if you're selling Lamar, you still need top 3 quarterback payment for him. Like that's the tough thing. If you see people that are thinking that, oh, well, he's just mediocre now, you're not going to get the amount you need. So you're probably not selling him. I have him in 1 league, I think, and it is TA6 where I am spike contending, even though I'm spike contending because J Mike has my first. I played J Mike this week. He almost put up 3 times the points I did. Like he let me know every week about it. So yeah, I'm holding on to Lamar because the ceiling is there. He had 2 straight weeks of 40-something points.
Yes.
There's no reason that can't happen again. So I don't.
Yeah, I don't know. I was just gonna say I don't know why you would want to sell him, in especially right now. I mean, coming off of 2 or 3 mediocre games in a row, and I was just looking at it. His schedule the rest of the year is pretty favorable. Looking at it, and especially in the playoffs, he's got the Browns, Falcons, and Steelers. So none of those have a particularly. Browns have a decent defense. The other 2 don't. So, he's gonna score. You know, this is his floor. Like, looking at the trade addict scoring, he's got like 16.5, 17.5, 19.2 the last 3 weeks. That's like his floor. And I do think, like I said, if Bateman comes back, that helps him. Like I said, even if Bateman isn't putting up huge numbers, he's been doing some field stretching, things like that. And they actually, I don't know if you saw, it wasn't in the news. I think I saw today or yesterday they signed Deshaun Jackson.
I was just about to bring that up. Yeah.
Which again is just more probably a field stretching thing. Deshaun Jackson will probably catch like 10 passes all year, if he stays on the roster the whole year. But it does, he hopefully attracts attention and helps stretch the defense and all that. So Lamar's going to be just fine. And yeah. I actually do, despite what I do at quarterback, have a couple of Lamar shares. I would have no interest in selling him unless it was a haul.
All right. Our next question at B Hillman 42, Parks and Rec or The Office? Like, this is Parks and Rec to me without even thinking, no question, smash accept, whatever kind of hyperbole you want to say right here. And I don't care if that's an unpopular answer, but it's the right answer.
I thought it was closer, but it's definitely Parks and Rec for me too. It's funny, they're both shows that had like the very mediocre to bad first seasons, and then just took off. But yeah,
Scrubs. That's not fair. Scrubs, honestly, like one of the best TV shows ever. But honestly, Parks and Rec is too. If all of them were on streaming services at the same time, Scrubs would probably win. The problem is I've watched Scrubs like 12 times already. So I'm like, all right, I've only seen Parks and Rec 4 times. So let me keep watching that.
There you go.
Though I'm on watch 6 of The Good Place right now.
But yeah, so I love, you go.
The Office was popular. The Office was doing well. So they made Parks and Rec. And they tried to make Parks and Rec like The Office, which is why the first season of Parks and Rec was bad. They literally said, you need to make this like The Office. Yes. And they're like, wait, this is bad. Let's make this a good show. And like, I had to be honest. I've watched like The Office was like 9 seasons, something ridiculous like that. I watched like the first 7. Like I watched a lot of it. That show went to shit the second Jim and Pam got together. And then
Michael Scott didn't help either.
Stupid. And then Michael Scott left, and they should have just scrapped it immediately.
I've burned the Robert California era out of my mind.
like blow up the Dunder Mifflin building for some reason. Have Pam wake up and it was all a dream. Do something. Just like that show should have ended. But like so easy Parks and Rec to me.
Yeah, I love me some Aubrey Plaza. I love me some Chris Pratt. And of course I love me some Nick Offerman. So Ron Swanson is maybe the best TV character of all time, in my opinion.
One of the reasons I love Parks and Rec so much also is that the happy-go-lucky, uber positive person is always just like nails on a chalkboard to me. I love Leslie Knope.
Yes, she's awesome. Everyone's awesome. Jerry is awesome, and
like they pulled it off so well. And like Chris Traeger, like I loved him because like, he was positive, but like not for positive reasons. Like I love that they made him a very dark, positive person, which again was another reason. It was just the show was so good.
We haven't even mentioned, John Ralphio and
you're like the word. Like everything and all of the Tammys, like it's just like to me it is like I get it. The Office, it's like Seinfeld. I get it. Seinfeld changed television. It was huge. Everyone loved it. I don't really like it. I respect it for what it did.
Really? I mean, I get what you're saying, man. I agree Parks and Rec is better, but I enjoyed The Office when it was in its prime. When it was, the first 5 seasons. Though. Yeah. Throw out season 1, like I said, but the next like 5 seasons I thought were really good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I get it. The Office, it's not fair because Seinfeld was original. We copied the English, and it worked. Like, I mean, they should have just aired the British The Office, and it probably would have been just as fine. That's a lie. We have people that wouldn't watch something because people have accents, but like, yeah. But Parks and Rec so much better. Okay, and B McNeil 17. Stretch Armstrong was definitely worth an early to mid first. Okay, like you play with Stretch Armstrong for 30 seconds, then you're like, yo, how far can we get this? And then all of a sudden you have corn syrup all over the place. Like, sorry, man, that's like mid-early second.
I'm with you.
Like they had to make that terrible cartoon and bad guys that all they did was stretch just like Stretch Armstrong did. Sorry, man. Sorry. All right.
Wait, Russ, what was your favorite toy?
Man, I don't think I had way too many, so it's tough. Like, I mean, I'm probably gonna have to go with like Ninja Turtles, and I know the easy answer would be Batman, but there weren't really that many Batman toys until I was older already, because the '89 movie was when they probably would have first really started making toys, and they didn't really get heavy into toys until the '92 animated series, and I mean, I'm old. I don't know what to tell you. Like most of these people are like 92. I was born in 95. Be quiet. Then this one born in 2015. And I'm getting it again. This is what it's like, everybody. You want kids? You try and podcast and they slap you in the face with a puppet.
I'm enjoying this.
She's loving it. All right, so let's get to the Trade Addicts trades. If I survive this long. All right, so Trade Addicts leagues are 12-team Superflex PPR tight end premium with 0.75 extra points per tight end reception. Thought I'd change it up a little bit while getting slapped in the head. And 0.05 points for return yardage for every league except TA1. And TA1's on a streak, man. Like I think TA1 might have the most trades this season, which is
right.
Wonderful because TA1 was on a drought for like 3 years. But this first one is super interesting. Like I need to talk about this.
Yeah.
Because Najee Harris for Dameon Pierce. Here's the thing. We knew Najee Harris was only volume based. And while that offense wasn't good last year, yes, thank you, Peter Howard. Just egg my daughter on to keep hitting me. I shouldn't have read that out loud because she wasn't paying attention and now she's going to hit me more. But yeah, I get it. Najee's not doing great. That offense isn't doing great, but let me keep going. Dameon Pierce is doing great. Like, I remember after week 1, we're just like, well, see all you suckers going and buying and being in favor of Dameon Pierce. And then he does well, and we're just like, whoops. But Dameon Pierce's value will never really get high because it's the same thing with like James Robinson, even though it's a little different because James Robinson was not drafted, but Dameon Pierce was what, 4th round, I think?
Yeah,
Later,
I believe
maybe?
it's 4th.
So there's always going to be, well, they're rebuilding, so they're going to draft another running back. They're going to draft another running back. They're going to draft another running back. And man, Robinson didn't even care when they drafted another running back, just saying. Right, Rock? Yeah.
Correct.
Like, so I get it. You want to score points, you want to win. So you trade for the guy scoring more points. But I feel like even if by the end of the season they continue going in the direction they're going, which means Najee going down, Pierce going up, I still think Najee ends being worth more than Dameon Pierce.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I to me, this is easily Najee Harris. And I know he's not doing great this year. I was just looking at the scoring. He doesn't have a game over 14 points yet, which obviously Dameon Pierce does. But
That's right.
But like you said, I don't know that he's going to be the Texans running back of the future. I could definitely see them drafting someone over him as soon as next year. It's a very good running back class next year. That's part of the reason everyone's so excited for the 23 first.
And even the 24 is supposed to be good.
Yes.
I know that's, insanely far away at this point, and so much can change by then. But
and the other thing is, we know Najee can handle the workload. Dameon Pierce has never handled a major workload going back to college. So
it is funny to see all the tweets be like, what was in the water in Florida that they would not give this man more than 125 touches? And it's all the highlights of him doing spinoramas while getting out of a headlock. And it's just,
and I remember hearing during the draft process that a lot of people were saying that was the coaching staff and they didn't know what the hell they were doing or something. And so maybe he can handle it and they just never let him do it, but we don't know that yet. So, I mean, it could be 2 weeks from now. We're talking about Dameon Harris. Damian Harris. There you go. Put the two together and I got New England running back. But Dameon Pierce, we could be talking about, his injury or something because he's not used to carrying the ball this many times. So, I like you said, I get that he's scoring more points this year. I don't think the difference is enough that I would just trade Najee for him straight up. If like Dameon Pierce was scoring 7-8 points a game more than Najee Harris, okay, maybe fine. But it's like 3 or 4 points a game, I think.
Yeah, and it's week 6. If we're talking all right, well, clearly this is a trade addicts league, so there's no deadline. But like if there was one, and we were getting close to that, or we're getting to the playoffs, and there is a 4-point difference. First of all, 4 points is not a lot. Like I've talked with many people on many different shows where it's just like, yeah, that sounds like a lot, but how often are games decided by 4 points?
Yeah.
And this is an average over however many games. There's no guarantee week to week they're going to score 4 more points than the other player every single game. So it's a crapshoot to do position for position trades in general, or 1-for-1 trades in general. So I get it. I get being afraid of Harris. I get that Pierce is scoring points. And I get that, I guess, you can move Pierce at any time you want. I guess. I don't know. Like, I'm trying to justify this, but I don't think I can comfortably.
Yeah, me neither. To me, it's in value. It's easily Najee, and the production isn't enough for me to do it straight up. I would want something on top of Dameon Pierce, even with him scoring more points.
Okay, sorry. All right, so the next trade we have, also TA1, the Village Bicycle, Rockies 23 first. Rockies 23 first.
The 112.
The 112, yes. The 112 for JK. The 112 and a 24 second for J.K. Dobbins, Alan Lazard, and Taysom Hill. Now, this was me, so I'll let you go.
Yeah, I would think I would give up the 112 and the 24 second for the other side, just because I know he wasn't he did nothing this past week, Dobbins. But I still like Dobbins. I still think this year we might not see great production. A lot of times coming off, especially a major ACL issue like he had last year, where it was more than just the ACL. A lot of times that first year you don't get great production. We saw it with Saquon last year.
Yep.
He didn't look great, and then he re-injured, which often happens too when you're coming off an ACL. Although that was more of a freak thing with him stepping on that guy. But
Well, I mean, he had the high ankle sprain first, and
that's
then he
true.
came
Yeah,
back,
yeah,
and then stepping on the dude's foot. Yeah.
yeah. And Lazard has been a nice little piece. I mean, he's people had real high hopes for him, and I don't think he's like wide receiver one or anything, but he's been getting some of the handful of touchdowns for scoring in Green Bay because Aaron Rodgers doesn't
Throw
score
touchdowns
fantasy
anymore.
points anymore. Yeah. So, um, but he's a nice, excuse me, wide receiver 2-ish type, I think, that you can throw in there. And again, with the 20, I mean, we all love 23 first, but I do think, and I'm not just trying to be full of myself, I do think this is going to be a pretty late 23 first. I believe I'm second in points in that league and like 4-1 or I guess 5-1 now. So it's looking like a very late first unless something goes crazy in the playoffs. So, yeah, I mean, I'm again, and like you, Russ, I love Dobbins. He's just, I think we may have to wait till 23 to see the full Dobbins experience because we didn't get it his rookie year. He missed all of last year. And then we're kind of recovering from an ACL Dobbins this year, but he's still gonna have some good games too. I mean, he had a good game. Was it 2 weeks ago? Right? He had
His
his two
second game
touchdowns.
back.
Yeah, I think he had 2
2
touchdowns or something.
touchdowns. He ended up with
Yeah,
like 24 points.
yeah. So he's gonna have some games this year too, but I think you're gonna see even better next year. And for the 110 to 112 and a 24-second. Plus a couple pieces that can help you contend. Maybe if you get lucky on a Taysom Hill 2 touchdown week or whatever, that's not bad either.
Yeah. So, like I said before, this was me. I sent Dobbins, Lazard, and Taysom Hill for the first and the second. I tried almost every single team to send Lazard and Taysom Hill in general to try
I
and
think
get.
to me too.
Yeah, I tried to almost everyone to try and get a second out of people. Didn't happen. Tried to get a first for Dobbins. Didn't happen. So I'm like, let's see if I could just get a first and a second for all of them. And it happened. I mean, like, I'm insanely rebuilding. I tore this team down after getting my first back, and Dobbins, Lazard, and Hill were the last of it. So I wanted to make sure I got a first out of it. And I still, no matter how much we all love the 23 class, I'm trying to make sure I still get some 24 in there because I don't. You need to push it out. The 24 class is also supposed to be good. And it's a whole eggs and basket thing. Like, I know Zach Reed always says he gets his advantage by knowing draft classes, being able to put all of his eggs in one draft class basket and then just crushing the draft. Well, I love Zach and I listen to every word Zach says. I'm still not him and not as good as he is. So I don't trust myself enough. So
2 of us are.
Yeah. So I like to spread it out a little bit. Plus, having 24 picks helps me trade after the 23 draft happens. So I like it. I wasn't thrilled value-wise about it, but I did it anyway because I'm me. Next, speaking of doing trades because I'm me, in TA4, I did... What did I do? De'Ami Brown, a 23 third and fourth for Geno Smith. TA4 is another one of my rebuild teams. Oh, man. So I thought I was doing, like, really well. I am, like, the teams I mean to be doing well in, I'm doing well in. But someone asked me today how many leagues I was going to make it the playoffs in. And I was like, oh, yeah, man. Like, it's probably going to be, like, 12, 15 teams. It was, like, 7 or 8. And, I mean, like, I'm in, like, 24 dynasty leagues. So that doesn't feel great, not going to lie. But the teams that are doing well are doing pretty well. But some of the teams that are doing bad are doing okay, which is kind of like being bad. But like, if you ask me how many teams are doing well, like, I feel like I should be able to say my tanking teams that have 0 wins are doing well. That's a good question. I'm going to write an article about that. What does it mean to do well in Dynasty? So I traded away Geno Smith for De'Ami Brown at 23 third and fourth. And honestly, Geno is doing really well. And I don't get it. And I don't think the Seahawks like it. But right now, Geno Smith is QB8 in points per game with 21.267, which is ridiculous in coming off of a 14.65 points per game. But we all know Geno isn't the long-term answer. We all know that Geno isn't great. So him riding that top 12 quarterback probably isn't for the season. So I was fine getting a third plus. And then, De'Ami Brown, like, it's not like I'm expecting the 2 touchdowns. It's not like I'm expecting any touchdowns. I'm not expecting anything at De'Ami Brown anymore, even though I want it. I love me some De'Ami Brown. And the person who sent this to me knew that. So that's honestly why I just took it. I was fine with the third plus. A fourth in De'Ami Brown is not much, but it's still something. And to see more for Geno Smith to me would have been strange. So I took it anyway. Plus, my team's terrible, so it was fine. We moved to TA6, where we have a much more realistic Dameon Pierce trade. And it was the aforementioned J-Mike with the team to beat all teams, traded his 24 first for Dameon Pierce. Now, this is a baller move. You have a team who is unbeaten, who has the most points by around like 200 something, and sent his 24 first to put 20-ish points per game in his lineup. Cool.
Yeah. This is just J-Mike doing what he does.
Yeah.
In terms of just the value, I think I'd still rather have a 24 first, but I get it. And he actually, I thought this was interesting because he, in that league, traded me Javonte Williams for a 24 first. So he essentially traded Javonte Williams for Dameon Pierce. Yeah. Would you do that?
I don't know, man. Like, I have no idea what to do with Javonte. And then, I do the DLF trade show on YouTube with Addison Hayes, and we did a show with Javonte, and he's like, any first. He traded Javonte away for a 24, and he was completely fine with it. And I was just like, I'll trust you because I know you're smart, but like, I don't feel good about it.
I get it though. Like, we talked about this when Javonte got hurt, and I admit I'm definitely higher than most on Javonte, even post injury. When I said that then, but it would take more than a first for me to trade him. 24 first, 23 first. I mean, it was a high 23 first, which no one's going to give. I would do that, but I need more than like a late first or a 24 first to trade Javonte away. And I get that even next year, we just talked about it with Dobbins, he might not be great either because he's coming off a major ACL. Yeah, exactly.
Javonte, yeah.
And even when he comes back, it's still, that first year is rough sometimes. So I get it. But even, and again, I said this when we talked about the Javonte injury a couple of weeks ago, even in 24, he's going to be like a 24, 25-year-old running back. He's still not going to be super old.
Young, yeah.
Yeah. So, and again, I just think the talent is so great. I mean, maybe coming off the ACL, we don't know. But, guys recover from it. Even those major ACLs, I think guys can still recover and be what they were. I mean, we're seeing it with Saquon this year. Now that he's a year removed from it, he's looking great and one of the best running backs in the league. So I just think there's too much talent there. The only question is if he ever gets the workload, which who knows at this point because of the injury. But yeah, I just love me some Javonte. So I would not do that.
By the way, I checked just because I was curious. 217 points J-Mike has over the second highest scoring team.
Oh yeah, he scores like 200 every week.
195.3 is his average points.
I'm shocked it's below 200.
He probably put up over 200 on me if it makes you feel any better.
Yeah.
We have a question in the chat. Corey Bogan asks, would you take Devontae? Wow. Would you take David Montgomery, a late 23 first and a 24 second for Saquon if you're rebuilding? No.
Me neither.
Oh, he says super flex, by the way. Don't care. No.
Yeah, I mean,
David Montgomery, if you take David Montgomery and the 24 second and combine that value into something that isn't a mid-aged running back, we can start talking. But David Montgomery and a 24 second get you nowhere. If we're talking with me, it gets you nowhere in a deal for Saquon, even if I'm rebuilding. Because while I don't want Saquon's points on my team, if I could turn that into like a 1-year rebuild, you still have Saquon freaking Barkley on your team.
What if that's a 23 first and 223 seconds and no player?
Oh. If it wasn't late, if you can tell me mid, the answer would probably be yes.
Yeah.
Like if it looked like one of those teams he was going to try and flip Monty for a 24 first. Sorry, dude. I don't think that's happening.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, if you could do that, then I would probably trade Saquon in a rebuild for a 23, a
Yeah.
24, and a 24
If
second.
you can find that deal before you accept the other one, then yes. Which there's nothing wrong in doing, by the way. Like start reaching out to other GMs and being like, hey, if I can get David Montgomery, would you give me your 24 first for him? Even if it looks like that 24 first is going to be late also, that's a long time for stuff to change. So yes, if you can find a way that's going to happen, if you trust those people enough to follow through, which is also a big part of that. Then absolutely, then yes, I would trade Barkley away for 2 firsts and a second, even if one of the first and seconds is technically 24.
But not a first and 2 seconds unless it's a higher first.
It would have to be a pretty early first for a first and 2 seconds.
I think so. I think I agree with you. I think I would do it for a mid. Like if I thought it was 105 to 107.
Non-playoff.
Yeah.
Is where we're talking like Smith and Jigbo or Gibbs, because I feel like Bijan and the 2 QBs are 1, 2, 3. So give me, wide receiver 1 or running back 2. Hey Kyle. Kyle Senra says hi, everyone.
Hey Kyle.
Rocky, would you trade Russ back his early first plus a late first for Kyler and Russ's early second?
Ooh, that is
14 team superflex. By the way,
yes, I gathered this was an actual league that we're talking about. That's tough just because of this the start Kyler's got off to this year.
Well, this was 2 weeks ago, and I made so I decided, like, you know what, my team's okay, but there's 1 or 2 really good teams. It's a 14 team league, and I had Stafford who was just pooping the bed. I'm just like, screw it, I'm blowing this up, and I had Kelsey on my team. So without really paying attention to what was going on, I traded away Kelsey and Stafford for Tua, who was hurt, and first. I don't remember what year it was or anything. So I kind of screwed myself out of any starting quarterback, and I'm like, oh, I don't have my first. So I'm like, hey, Evan. So yeah, so that's what we ended up doing. I don't remember what the real details was, but it was getting my first back to let me rebuild. I'm not getting the 101 and probably the 102. So we're probably talking 103 at best. So, I mean, Kyler for the 103 and a late first, I feel like that's still Kyler because of what he can be.
I think so too. I expected a lot more out of Kyler than what we're seeing this year, and he has performed better than this in the past. So,
and I also gave him my second round pick on top of Kyler. So, if my pick is the 103, he's getting the 203. I thought it was a good trade. I thought it leaned his side, but like not scary wise for me to like feel bad about it. But I got my first back and it made me happy. And I don't care that Kyler doesn't look great right now. You're happy to have Kyler on your team.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm at. I think the value wise, it's on his side with Kyler in the early second. But I get, you got to pay to get your first back tax anyway. So
yep. I told him I would too. Like, I'm like, look, I know I'm going to have to pay for it and I'm willing to do it.
But yeah, and I probably wouldn't do it personally just because I don't generally pay for guys, elite quote unquote guys, especially if they're not currently performing. So at an elite level, but I think value wise it works for him. Yes.
Yeah. All right. In TA9, I liked this trade. A 23 first, second, and third for Chris Olave. And the 23 first is middle of the pack. Yeah, I think it's a 3-3 team. It could go either way. Chris Olave is really good. I get that Chris Olave was like the 107-ish in this year's draft, in the draft where we pretty much said that besides Breece Hall, give me a 23 first. But Chris Olave has shown what he can do in an offense that will just feed him, and that's great. So I would be willing to give up a first, second, and third for Chris Olave, especially when it's not my first.
Yeah, I'd rather it be a later first than a mid first. I just wonder if if it truly does end up being mid, do you get maybe like Jackson Smith and Jigba with that 23 first or some other highly touted receiver coming out in next year's class.
But you have a very good receiver in Olave. Like you've seen it. You have it. And while there is a very good chance that Smith and Jigbo comes out and is worth more than Chris Olave, it doesn't I can't believe I'm going to say this. That does really matter. Like, you have a very good young wide receiver on. I get that it's not Sean Payton anymore, but at least it's a team that has shown they can be stable, they can be good, and it's not like the Commanders or the Jets. It's not a team you want to stay away from. So I would be happy to get Chris Olave again, assuming we're talking like 104 or 5 or later. Like if that ends up being the 103, I probably cry a little bit, but I'll cry with my 16 to 24 points weekly that I get from Chris Olave.
Yeah, I just, like I said, I think I'd prefer it be late. Like I'd prefer, like, I know that it's probably more like 8, 9, 10 in that area.
Oh, I would feel great if it ended up making the playoffs and like surviving the first round. Like I would literally start dancing if that were the case.
Because he's been solid, but I don't know that he's ever more than a high end 2, Olave. He's been good, but I don't know that he's ever going to be amazing.
But that offense is going to change. Like,
definitely.
I mean, clearly Dalton's not the answer, but like honestly, is Jameis the answer? I really don't think that's a long-term answer.
No, I'd agree with that. I do think though Jameis might be the answer next year, because I'm not sure. I mean, they're not playing that well, so maybe they're in range to get a decent quarterback.
Anywhere in the first in this draft might be
True.
a range to get a quarterback.
Yeah.
Like, and I know that like once you go past like the first half of the round, like the percentage of success of your quarterback drops. But like, let's not pretend there haven't been good quarterbacks drafted after pick 17.
But it's not as often as you think.
I know, exactly. But like, I'm fine with it. So you remember how I said I would dance if it was like a playoff first?
Mm-hmm.
You ready to dance now anyway?
Sleeper, trade of the week. Sleeper, trade of the week. We're gonna talk about a trade Addicts trade, and it's sponsored by the Sleeper app.
It's a lot harder to dance with a 7-year-old sleeping on you. All right, so the sleeper trade of the week in Trade Addicts 10. Because we talked so much about the Cardinals in the beginning, this is a trade for Rondale Moore. It is Rondale Moore for Ian Book, David Bell, a 23 4th and 24 3rd. So this was me. And I really just went like, I want to get Rondale Moore. Crap, I don't really have anything like good to give up. So I'm like, let me click a lot of buttons and see how that goes. Like, so I put Bell in there because you know how we feel about Bell. And so hopefully, like, we said it enough that when people see us willing to give up Bell, that shows like it means something.
I don't care what he's done this year. We'll see what he does. When
Watson comes in.
Yeah.
So I figured a 23 4th was my best pick this year. A 24 3rd was my best pick next year, and a QB prospect, and it worked. I was thrilled.
Prospect is being used very loosely there.
Hey, he's on your team. Calm down.
But yeah, and I actually this was with Derek, who's in TA10, who I actually talked to a lot. I've kind of become friendly with him, and he had mentioned it to me, I think, when you offered it actually, and he's majorly rebuilding. He's got a ton of 23 and 24 firsts. Not that Rondale, isn't a young guy that he could go forward with, but his thinking was that, Rondale's never going to be a special guy.
He's not a build your team around.
Exactly. And he doesn't really need the points this year, and he doesn't have a lot of Bell shares. So it made a lot of sense for him. He said he mentioned Bell as a guy he'd like to get another share or two of, because he doesn't really have Bell. And I think he likes him also. So, I think it made sense from both sides. I'd probably prefer the Rondale side, especially if I'm trying to score now.
Yeah.
Just because Bell's value, even though we both like him still, is super low right now, and the rest of the pieces you gave him are junk. So, so I think the value is on the Rondale side. I think he maybe could have squeezed a little more out for Rondale if he shopped him around, but but I think it's fine either.
Well,
For
he
both
did for
guys
about like 3 minutes. He put out in the group chat, he's like, I have an offer for Randall that I'm willing to accept. And I was like, really? And someone else sent him an offer. He's like, anyone else send me an offer? And I guess no one else did. So he took it. I was about to say I quartered for $1 on this, but I think I might have pennied for a nickel on this one.
Yeah, I think that's more accurate.
All right. Well, that is our sleeper trade of the week, brought to you by the Sleeper Fantasy app, the fastest growing fantasy football platform in the world. Join a new Dynasty League or migrate yours to their platform and enjoy how easy they make it to manage all your leagues in one place. Join millions of players today on Sleeper, the #1 fantasy football platform. Download the app today to get started. We have another question in the chat. Roman Runyon. Speaking of Jets, we want Wilson now over Moore. I mean, yes. I don't.
Yeah. Elijah Moore had as many targets this week as me and you did, Russ.
You had to put it like that.
Targets, not catches. Targets.
I know. That still hurts. Like the Jets are going to be weird because they have the Jets and they have Zach Wilson as their quarterback. But the thing, I think Zach Wilson fits better with Garrett Wilson player-wise, like abilities-wise. We saw how much of a beast Garrett Wilson can be, and that's on top of the fact that he's a great route runner and a smart wide receiver. Well, Elijah Moore is very, very good. He's not that big-bodied, high-point guy, contested catch guy. Like, that's why he did well with Mike White and why he did well with Joe Flacco. Like, unfortunately, it seems like that's going to be the case. If they build their offense up and if Zach Wilson improves, Elijah Moore might be good in the NFL, but it's not looking great for him. So, yeah, the answer is Wilson over Moore, even though, I wasn't completely there. Like, I thought pretty much Wilson over Moore ever since the draft, but part of me was holding it like, I really like Moore and he did well. There's a chance. That's how high my voice got. There's a chance it can happen.
That's where I was at too with Moore. Moore looked so good last year. They could just get rid of Zach Wilson, man. They could both be good. And because Wilson has not been good since Zach Wilson came back either. They've been more low volume in those games too.
Breece Hall's been pretty good though.
Yes, exactly. So they've been running the ball more because they know Zach
Wilson
quarterback. Yes. So I just worry so much that, especially they're freaking 4-2 now. If they keep winning, like, how long is Zach Wilson going to be there?
Oh, he's there for that first contract, and he's starting for that first contract.
Maybe he'd be so bad that he wouldn't make it through the whole first contract.
Oh, you're such a bad person.
But if he is, it's so hard to see either. I think I prefer Wilson over Moore as well, slightly, as Peter says in the chat. Maybe trade Wilson for Moore plus something, because I do think both can be good with a good quarterback, but it's not going to happen with. There's no way they're both going to be good with Zach Wilson. So you got to pick one, and I would lay my chips on Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Like, to put your chips on Moore, you're hoping that Wilson improves and they I hate this phrase, give him the keys to the offense. Like, they open up the offense to like more than one read and more than
Zach Cook.
Yeah. Well, on that note, that's the end of our show sheet and the end of the questions in the chat. So that's going to be the end of our show. Plus, this one's starting to snore. So I have to say things now. I'm used to having the guests say, stuff about them, but no, it's just us.
Yep.
Patreon.com/TradeAddictsPod. If you enjoyed watching us, taking part in the chat and all of that stuff, join our Patreon. You can do that every single week. And you also can get access to the Cool Kids Club, our awesome chat on GroupMe, which is super fun with a lot of super awesome people. And ffpodshirts.storenvy.com, where you can get awesome. It's really hard for me to show you that I'm wearing an SFB hoodie right now, but I am, I swear. You can get all your SFB 12 stuff and all of your DAP network stuff and all of the shows that didn't want to make their own stuff I threw on there. Every single penny goes to Fantasy Cares. So you get some awesome stuff. Kids get some awesome stuff for the holidays. Everybody wins. And oh, by the way, the backgrounds we had to use today, because the only Trade Addicts background we have is set for 3 people, and we did not have 3 people. The Trade Addicts Trade Review, part of our patronage. Yeah, okay.
That works.
Part of being one of our patrons, we will do trade reviews for your leagues. If you email them over to us, we will do this, what we do for the Trade Addicts leagues. And like, I'm willing to be as mean as you want me to. If you want me to make fun of your league mates, I will do it. I will say bad words. I'll do it. Yeah. All right. On that note, I think good night. Are we done? Is there stuff? This is weird. We're going for an hour. It's an actual hour and 10 minutes, and I don't know what to do with myself.
I know it's way too short for you, Russ. I know. But
we'll
live.
We're just going to sit here in silence for another 25
minutes.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.